Copyright Stanford University, all rights reserved.
Thanks for coming here tonight. Tonight we have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Jorge Garcia. He's a Chief Scientific Officer at IC Services, and he leads their strategic planning and consulting services for medical device industry. Dr. Garcia, he graduated from USDA back in 1983 in veterinary, and he co-founded his company, Berkeley Antibody Company, in 1984, where he further sold to a bigger organization. And he's here today to talk to us about how to bridge the gap of medical devices and taking them from the bench to the market. Please help me to welcome Dr. Garcia.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I'm proud to be here actually. But I wanted to make it very easy for us to talk. So if you guys want to interrupt me, ask me any questions, please do. And I'm going to start right off the bat. Let me see if I can get, there you go. I just wanted to kind of talk about our company, our history a little bit. We're a CRO, which is a contract research organization, and we've been conducting research and development since 1984. And we basically originally started in the biotechnology business back with Cetus, Chiron, Genentech. I don't know if any of you guys know those names, but those are the original companies that we work for, from a very small number of people. And we've been conducting GLP studies since 1986. Those are good laboratory practices. And back in those days, there were really no formalized regulatory work going on here. So I actually had to go myself personally to the federal bookstore in San Francisco and buy the Code of Federal Regulations, read it myself, and outline how we were going to do all this GLP work. Because there was no courses, there was nobody, there was nothing back in those early years. And basically, we wanted to establish ourselves as being excellent in science, number one, and really with a strong clinical surgical background. That's what we wanted to do, and science was primary. So my business partner at the time, had a PhD from Berkeley, was a postdoc at UCSF. So science was really at our forefront of concern. And our mission statement that we developed back then, we all thought in those early years that we were going to be academics. Turned out that was completely wrong, but we wanted to make sure that we were supporting our clients, helping our clients succeed in their work to the ethical treatment of our laboratory animals, which was really important to us, because at that time, the animal rights movement was getting a big, strong foothold on the academic facilities, and we wanted to make sure that people knew that we were doing that. We weren't doing the kinds of things where everyone thinks you're going to spray stuff in rabbits' eyes and do all this, cosmetic work. And we really wanted to further commercialization and humanitarian applications of biotechnology and medical device, because back then in those early years, a physician could do and place anything into anybody that they wished at the time. And the controversy, I don't know if you guys, you're probably too young, but the whole breast implant issue that came out, that was a Dow Chemical implant that was made. It started breaking apart. And when you go back and look at some of the original testing of that, it was just done in a few hundred guinea pigs. Or the Duncan shield, which caused pelvic inflammatory problems, that was only tested in a few hundred pigs. So I think it was 200 pigs. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that we were doing things ethically to our animals and that we were really applying a very humanitarian approach to everything that we were doing. We were naive. We were in our 20s. What did we know? We're still in our 20s anyway. So then as the industry grew, as our business grew, the device industry it was just, starting out. It was at the birth point of it. And we got to work with a lot of wonderful people. And I think points to consider as we started out, it's know the destination and how to get there. And understand your exit strategies. So if you understand your destination, meaning where you want your product to go, where you want your device to go, it's going to help you figure out your exit strategies. And when we're talking about crossing the bridge, all of you guys are in an academic institution. Academic institutions aren't designed to get, there are commercialization thoughts, but they're not really designed to get things to the marketplace. And most people, like even back in our early years, don't realize how many animals it's going to take to get things to the marketplace. It takes an enormous amount of animals. And we want to make sure that during this talk, I'm going to talk quite a bit about that. Understand the economic landscape, It's changing. It's constantly changing. You guys right now are facing a difficult one, and the regulatory pathways and navigating through them, they're becoming more and more stringent as time goes along. So I'm going to be talking about make sure that, okay, these are some basic ideas, securing funding and investors, making sure you really work with people that you like and that you enjoy, and making sure your investors are knowledgeable. Review your PI, make sure that all your intellectual property is yours, and be very careful. You're in an academic environment. You probably have been educated on these issues already, but when you guys work in an academic environment, intellectual properties belong to the university. And that one sole thing, this intellectual property issue, helped my business grow because we had Stanford physicians, we had UCSF physicians that said, I've got an idea. Where can I go? You know, they came to 800 University Avenue in Berkeley. So that's how we got started. And again, partnering with the right people, make sure that they have your spirit, your sense of excitement, your sense of whatever you're committed to. If it's good science, if it's good engineering, make sure they share that with you, and that you kind of have that kind of common. You'll always have to, sooner or later, you're going to have to get a bean counter. And trust me, you only need one bean counter to help you through this. It really takes good science and engineering and that kind of stuff, and then understand the challenge you've been confronting. This I put together quite a while ago, and what I did is I wanted people to get an idea that if you've got a product concept, which is what you guys usually come up with, you'll be working on the benchtop within a device. Oftentimes what happens is a lot of entrepreneurs will go, okay, I can go to the butcher shop and get, you know, a leg or a liver or a heart. And what they forget about those things is when you go to the butcher shop, those animals were bred to be eaten. They're slaughtered at a time where they're eaten. So therefore, the age may not be appropriate. The size of the animal may not be appropriate for the potential device that's going to be going into. When you start working with prototype devices, you'll be using a lot of animals at that particular time. You'll be coming to facilities where the actual prototype device, you begin to work on it, go back, you re-engineer it, you come back and forth. We've had lots of experience with those kinds of prototype devices and helping people go along. When you finally get your prototype device absolutely perfectly working, it's not going to break, you're not going to need duct tape, no more soldering, no more any of that kind of stuff. Then we're ready for preclinical studies, and that's an area that we call, these are GLP studies, and they're federally regulated. And it's important for everyone to know that once those studies begin, they're permanently documented, and the FDA can come into the facility, in our facility, for example, and look at something we did 15 years ago and want to see everything that goes along with it. And I can tell you, when the FDA walks in your door, in our doors, they're targeting a particular problem that occurred in the human market, and they're saying, okay, where did that work occur, and how did it go? And it's there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Clinical trials, once you get the FDA to say that all this GLP work is good, then you get to go into human clinical trials, which you get to practice the device, you get to see whether or not first-in-man kind of thing occurs. FDA approves that, then you're going to have to do product launches and penetrating market penetration. That means physician training. That means getting your physicians to accept it. That means you got to get your sales force trained up for the product launch. And those are things, that's a big, broad picture. And it takes years. And interwoven of that is the whole reimbursement that we'll talk about later. And that's really the process of commercialization. Again, what I'm talking about is most academic facilities don't work with CROs, and I want to kind of point that out to you guys because I think that a lot of your professors that may have large academic labs that have, can do some of this work in-house, can do the work on their, oh yeah, well, we have an operating, we've got pigs, Stanford has all the primates and everything. But in fact, their focus isn't commercialization or getting yourselves to the market. So I'm talking a little about the CRO and our mission. Our mission is to get products to the marketplace is our #1 mission. And we're also there to support regulatory submissions. So all the GLP work, it's there to support, to make sure that that we're side by side with you guys. And we also support R&D efforts. And that's our goal. And it's very important. It's different than an academic goal. An academic goal is really to advance science, to advance medicine, teaching, and training. So they're a little bit different. And so that the speed in which we work is vastly different. Please interrupt me, okay? Yeah. Okay, back. Yeah, so a preclinical study is actually considered a non-clinical study, and that's GLP, and that's all done in animals. A clinical study all refers to humans. That's all humans. So you have to do the animal work before they allow to go into human work most of the time, especially today. Yeah. Yeah, so the FDA has set guidance for, so the GLP is set in stone. How you perform the GLP is set in stone. And then furthermore, the FDA has guidance for particular devices, cardiovascular devices, orthopedic devices. It has guidance. And therefore, we'll work with you to develop the protocols, and we'll talk with the FDA. You submit your protocol first to the FDA and said, does this work? Are you happy with it? Kick it back. They say no, then we refine. They come back with their criticisms, and then we start cleaning it up. So we would do something like that together. Yes, yes, yeah. You'll have to hit those goals. And it's almost, today, it's almost, I mean, people try to go with some of these more simple devices or something that's been on the market and they just tweaked it a bit. They're going to try and go in, but the FDA can still stop you and say, no, we want to see your device in an animal to make sure that it's at least safe. And there's two things, safety and efficacy. The FDA is really concerned at this animal stage with safety. Okay. Yeah, so what is that? Oh, that we did all that, okay. Mission statement, all righty. Let me go, where are we? Oh, no, I'm going backwards. Oh, there you go. I'm really bad with this stuff. So this is this is what we are, and this is just a thing, and that's our particular mission. And there are broad areas. So CROs can do a wide variety of things. If the FDA wants you to prove, says something, there are disease model creations. So let's say that you're working in neuro and you need to have, you're doing neuroaneurysms. There are CROs that can create the neuroaneurysm, so then your device, you can go and input it. So there are people that do pharmacokinetic studies, PK studies, oncology studies. These are the kinds of studies that CROs can do. And you really want to select the CRO that has that particular expertise in what your area of interest is. So we're really known for our device work. We do some, pharmaceutical and biotech, but not as, we're about 90% medical device. And when you look at your staffing of a CRO, when you ask what's a CRO made of, it's made of veterinarians, physicians, surgical specialists, interventionalists, OR technicians, anesthesia people, and also people that are familiar with pre- and post-operative care. Many of the things that we're doing are extremely invasive procedures. If you're doing breathing heart technology or heart-lung bypass cases, you really have to be prepared. So it takes quite a bit. And project management, which is the person, we have 2 project managers that help the process through, can make sure that all the documentation's in place and regulatory affairs and that kind of thing. Equipment, it's like a small hospital. It has every single thing you need. And when you come to work for us, it goes back to this question. If someone says, well, I'm going to do a laser study, sometimes you'll have to bring the laser, or there'll be kind of a give and take there. So it depends exactly on what the things in particular. The services, the areas of specialization, this is now in particular, these are for device, in particular cardiovascular, gastrointestinal. One of the things that I found, if you look at big, broad spectrum, we have an aging community, of which I'm one of them, and one of the things that people want is they want to be thin and they want to be beautiful. They don't want to age. And really, if you think about what's happening out there as far as medical care and everything, it's to lose weight, all the GI stuff, all the barrel stuff, all that, and all the skin resurfacing, lasers. It's to be thin and beautiful and stay young forever. Kidney transplants, which I have one, everything else to keep you alive longer. So, I mean, that's where we're going. The points to consider, when you are in an academic environment, you have to think about the funding source. If you have NIH funding, you have to make sure that you go to the appropriate facilities that can accept NIH money. If you, and issues of who owns the animal, your university may be extremely concerned about who owns the animal. And then regulatory compliance issues, all of this impact funding sources and impact where we're going to be, how you work with us. Again, bridging the gap. I think one of the things I find is that when I spoken to my colleagues, the veterinarians here at Stanford, or the veterinarians at UCSF, or at Harvard, they often don't know that you guys, there are entrepreneurial people on campus, and they don't know that you guys have these needs. And I think it's important to improve interactions between academic institutions, CRO. I think increasing awareness that we're there to support you and get you to the right place, and exchange information, it's mutually beneficial. Also, you need to exchange good things and bad things, experiences that you've already had. And oftentimes, everybody just wants to tell us all the good stuff, but we really need to know the bad stuff to be really effective. And ways of working together. We have institutional agreements with some academic institutions. We work with incubators, of which you have on campus here, and most UC campuses now have incubators. And most of the universities don't even know their incubators exist on campus. I mean, are you aware of that? I mean, people don't even know. And entrepreneurs like yourselves, reaching out. Again, I think if we work together, we can maximize expertise, which allows you guys to do what you're supposed to do, improve overall outcomes, because then we do what we're supposed to do, and then it really does save time and money, and it helps really create a virtual company so that you rely on us to do exactly what we need to do, and you can stay doing your thing there. I'm talking really fast. You have to. Okay, so you got to interrupt me. Okay, so what's happening today? There are big changes that are going on today. And IP you're familiar with, so you have to protect your IP. And I understand that you guys have quite a bit of experience in intellectual properties and protection, whether it's a trademark, a copyright. You got to make sure you identify it as yours and keep it secret as much as you can, and ensure those kinds of things. Regulatory compliance, it's a major issue today for a lot of people. Again, we're talking about the GLP work that's done with the animals. And with the animals, we have USDA laws that we have to work with. These people come in unannounced. The FDA comes unannounced. The DEA they do come announced. And you have to make sure that your working facilities are ALAC accredited and that kind of stuff. Okay, any questions? Yeah, yes. Oh, good. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Right. Correct. They may not know. So they'll come in unannounced, and they will, because we've been doing this for years now, so they've already set all this work in from us into the FDA. And so the FDA has it as an application to get approval to go into a human. So then they'll come to our facility and they'll say, okay, open your books, we want to see this. But if your study's in there, they can pick your study to look at. So you really don't ever want to do a GLP study until you know it's completely ready, which means, and again, a lot of entrepreneurs are extremely aggressive with timelines, extremely aggressive. We got to do it. And what ends up happening is they're not ready. We have problems. The study stays open because they're not closing it out. The FDA comes in and says, I want to look at that study. And it's open, and so they can. And they see all the problems that have occurred, or the company has sold or it's been sold to somebody else, and somebody else went ahead and submitted stuff to the FDA without closing out the appropriate documents. Those are permanent documents, so they'll be there. Again, you need to make sure that all these things, pathology is extremely important, because that really is the end, the target of which you guys are going to be ultimately faced with. And unfortunately, all that is permanent. So you have negative outcomes. We can't change that. You can't. You can go ask for second opinions from another pathologist, but it's in our records, and the FDA will see it. And since we've been audited by the FDA, I can tell you one of our experiences recently, we had a targeted study, and it was a large company had bought a small company for a lot of money. And it was being used in humans, and they wanted to change the marketing of a bit without going to the FDA again. So they submitted for a change of use of the device. The FDA says, well, wait a minute, let's go back and look at this a little better. They were having some human problems. They came back, and the study at our facility, which was originally started as a GLP study, was never closed. And this is now 6 years later. And so I have to now find the original study director. I have to find the original physician that did the original work. Turns out that the study director and CEO of the company was in federal prison. Turns out that the physician that did the original work lost his license and was in the Caribbean on a sailboat. So we got hosed. We ended up with all of this on our shoulders, and because we couldn't we couldn't get any of them to come forward or anything. The company that bought that company, turns out, got even in bigger trouble than us because during their due diligence, they never followed through with anything. They just kept sending everything to the FDA. So it is really important. And these things do happen. I know you guys at Stanford are extremely ethical and would never wind up in federal prison. But we ourselves, I get myself, because my name's on everything, I don't want to be in federal prison either. So I'm too small to be in federal prison. So let's see, here we go. So some of the requirements that you got, yes?
So on that note, you said everything that because you must do clinical studies before, right?
Right. It's more expensive. So, and this is another thing, another FDA audit that we had where the FDA came in. The studies we did were not GLP studies. The company said they were. And so we had to prove that they weren't. And the only way that we could prove they weren't were through financial records that showed that they didn't pay the actual amount of money. So in order to do a GLP study, you must be extremely confident, and you should talk to your CRO about it. Say, hey, if the device keeps breaking, or you have to keep fiddling with it to make it work, you're in trouble. You should stop it. It's better to stop the study and have it, and just close it and said close, just didn't work. The FDA doesn't frown on that. That's a fact. But if you continue and then you submit the data, it's a big issue. It becomes a major problem. This is the requirements that the FDA requires of a study. So this is what the protocol would look like. This is stuff we're going to fill out, the number of animals, all that kind of stuff. It's just there for you. And all the appropriate approval signatures, everything about the material, the method of administration, the experimental design of it. That's how it looks. Yes? I wasn't going to talk about that, but I will. The FDA and the protocol, but all this is permanently documented. This is what it looks like. The statement that it is under GLP. We got all the appropriate sign-offs, the introduction, the conclusion, discussions. There was just like you would do in a normal thing, a normal paper, and a quality assurance. And the big difference is that you have an outside person that's actually coming in at different times of the study who's independent, saying that you are actually doing what you're doing. And so that's why there's added costs, is those people have to be there. And the other additional things that happen to us is that all the raw materials that are being used during the study, we have to keep on file. We have to actually keep the temperatures in which the animals are maintained in. We have to keep all the autoclave sterilized surgical equipment. Everything that's being used, we have to keep it and maintain it. So when the FDA comes 7 years later, we have all that. They come and they look at it to prove that we did the optimal conditions for that particular study and that we had the optimal outcomes. So it's very extensive, actually. The current financial climate for you guys, I think this is the big challenge, is getting money. Back when we started, we could do work on a handshake. We would just simply write the bills. Everybody paid. There was no big deal. Fogarty sent me all these companies. We just, you know, you sent them a bill and they paid it. Today it's different. And especially since 2008, it's just early stage. The venture capitalists are basically dead in the water. They don't want to invest in us. They have no interest in entrepreneurs, have no interest in what we're doing, and it's increasingly more difficult. And what ends up happening is that angel investors are the way young entrepreneurs are getting money. And I think you have to be careful with the kind of angel investor you're looking at. You need to be real careful. You need an angel investor that understands your technology, that is familiar with, and so if you need help, they can get in there and get dirty with you instead of asking you, how soon are you going to bring a cure to cancer? When are we going to get the AIDS vaccine? When I started my company back at BAbCO, we had investors which would ask me, when are you going to cure cancer and when are we going to get the AIDS vaccine? It's like, that's not even what we were doing. So, you know, you have to really be careful because these people are extremely wealthy. I'm not nothing negative about angel investors, but they're not always, they're just extremely wealthy, you know? And they make decisions just solely based on money. So not necessarily good science or anything like that. Another big thing that we're seeing that's come around is SBIR grants. I'm sure you're familiar with them. You know, these are great. Are you guys familiar with SBIRs? Yeah, okay. So when we started BAbCO, we had 25 of them, and we used them badly, but we did have 25. We were like one of the largest grant getters at the time. And then DOD has a lot of grants, and DOD is very interested, particularly with all these wars going on, in funding people that are looking at trauma, that are looking at loss of eyes, wounds, orthopedics, that kind of stuff, burns, all that stuff is real hot, so you guys can get a lot of funding there. And then independent funding sources, what we're finding is, like the Alfred Mann Institute, for example, it's started to say, okay, how can we get these academics to commercialize faster? You know, nowadays, all these people want to pick your brains, to commercialize things faster, instead of sitting in an academic, what do you call it, little throne or something. So, about reimbursement, you know, this isn't what we do, but we certainly are familiar with it. Reimbursement, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your ideas and your projects, you're working hard, you do all your GLP work, you do all your human clinical trials, and then the FDA comes back and it approves the thing, but it approves it at minimal, you know, says, oh, it's okay for investigation, it's okay for this or that, but reimbursement, they won't pay. So you got to make sure, and that Medicare and Medi-Cal and HMOs are the ones that are going to be paying. And so coding, coverage, and payment, coverage is how much of this is going to be covered in terms of full medical coverage. That's what you want. The coding is really the communication between payment and coverage to make sure that the codes are set correctly so that people get paid for what they're doing, whether it's a diagnostic, providing a service, and that kind of thing. And this has become more important than ever in commercialization. It's changing, and it's constantly being sought after. And there are companies that will help you and specialize in this. And I think that when the mistake, when I was at Covance for 9 years, we had a reimbursement group, and it was the first time that I actually spent time with them that realized how important it was, and that really, as you're starting out at benchtop, you got to be thinking about reimbursement all along the way. Partner with people that are in that zone, so they're bringing it in, and kind of work hand in hand with it. Don't wait till the end, because we had a recent client that waited to the end, and the FDA said, oh, it's too investigational, and it was everything down the tube. So you really got to be careful there. And commercialization, I think it's an interdisciplinary approach. You want everybody on the team with you. These strict regulations, not just from my end, but also what's happening in the human market, what's happening, all these things being pulled off the shelves and having to repeat things. And it's really important. And of course, what's happening with reimbursement today, it really is the most important thing when it comes to device commercialization. For you guys, making sure that you've got all the right connections there. And, you know, we've been around a while, so we can help you with some of these people too, you know, if you need it. I think lessons learned. I think what we've kind of, I'm almost finished, you guys, so you got to stop me. So lack of document control, lack of attention to public health status, meaning if you really don't understand what's happening with disease and what's happening out there overall with the public, the health, the community, you know, and what communities you live in. Lack of ability to maintain clinical focus while changing approach. You know, you got to stay focused. You got to make sure that you're not moving all over the map, and make sure that team works really well together. And then I put this here at the end, excellent outcomes. I think it really starts with good science, the right models, right technology in the right time. And I just put the Arteon thing out there because everyone's talking about it these days. I don't know, I've been to Stanford Biodesign, and I think we've had 3 people talk about Arteon. They were a client of ours as well. And it was an extremely successful group of people, great scientists in the beginning, went to an incubator, the foundry got it to the next level and sold it to Medtronic. So, I mean, that's what you guys want, I think, at the end of the day. So, let me get this one. On that note, that's me. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so in the beginning, in the 90s, I would say that about 70% were entrepreneurs. Before there was a Boston, before there was a Guidant. Those were our clients here in the Bay Area. And then as the industry grew and started buying up, you know, big companies have no intellectual power, right? They're just dinosaurs. They need to buy young, inventive, creative, innovative companies. So they come and they buy, they suck them dry, and they throw them away. They're horrible. So entrepreneurs are our best clients. I mean, we're our best clients because of what's happening. Now we have the big clients that we have. So all of them that you can think of are our client base, the big ones. And we do physician training for them. We do R&D work, especially if they buy somebody out here on the West Coast. They want to get, you know, start moving them to the marketplace. They'll put more money into them. But even big companies with this economic struggle have begun to really pull back. So what's called big companies outsource. And so when they outsource, they're outsourcing to us. So we really depend on that. And there's a shrinking outsourcing as well. So it's a tough time for us. But big companies, the biggest ones you can imagine on the West Coast, on the East Coast, that's where the big ones are. They're our clients. And some academic institutions, they fly out, like Mayo Clinic will fly out, Harvard will fly out to work with us, just because we can move it faster to, you know, get things done quicker. Well, there are a few people that can do, for example, I don't mean to brag, to do what we can do. So, like, who could do that? I mean, you know, there are very, very few companies. Yeah, but they can't do that. I mean, I've been in, I mean, to be honest with you, so, like, that's why they come. Or else they would go to their local CRO. So, if you have a it depends on what you like. Cardiovascular-wise, you know, the Bay Area is the birthplace for the medical device entrepreneurism, and it started in the mid '80s to the '90s to right now. That's the birthplace of it, and we were at the right place at the right time. So other CROs. So when I was Covance, they flew me all over the Covance. It's one of the world's largest CROs. They flew me all over to try and replicate what we do here. Does this make any sense? Okay, so do you know a CRO that can do that? Like,
yeah, I didn't know that Covance is hiring you all over.
So no, I sold my company to Covance.
Oh,
I became part of Covance, and they flew me to the different locations to create this environment. Yeah. Yes. Young man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of these medical device companies like successes and failures.
Yeah.
You commented so fast about which direction that you think with the procedures and longevity type procedures.
Right.
And then the other part, all about reimbursement. It seems like those are the things that get reimbursed. I just wonder if you could sort of put it all together.
Yeah. Well, so for example, depending on what time, like right now, everyone's working on renal denervation. Hot topic, got sold, made a lot of money. A lot of companies are working. The field's, pretty loaded. There was a time, and we see this kind of fluctuation. Everyone's working on laser resurfacing. So we have everyone's working with us, and they're getting reimbursement. The Kaiser's buying them, the HMO's buying them. Everyone's using Thermage, for example. Everyone buys Thermage and uses it, even the big the Kaiser types. And so that's been really gone smoothly. We've decided now that in order to lose weight, if you're morbidly obese, Stanford will even do, a lap band or what it's, it'll do that now. It's getting reimbursed. So it depends on at the moment and a time where they see a need, an unfilled need, and all of a sudden there's the device ready to fill it, and it goes through FDA, nice, all the way smooth approval, you got your reimbursement, it works. That's how that happens. Kind of right place, right time. It's not always logical, I don't know how to put it, but we are trying to stay, everybody wants, for example, an AIDS vaccine. I mean, we've been working on that thing for years. When we get one and it's approved, it's going to get reimbursed. Yeah, So, did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's charged. There's an OR charge, a personnel charge. The veterinarians, the MDs, the technicians are all charged. There's hourly rates for everybody. I almost designed it like a vet hospital, where all that is charged out. The per diems for the animal care, the animal charge is there. It's all line item by line item. So depending how extensive it is, or and also how much equipment you need. If you need OCT, if you need, heart-lung bypass machines, if you need all this equipment, that equipment has a certain charge when we use it. So it kind of depends on, and then the kind of animal. If we're going to be using cows, for example, they're more expensive. Depends on the time of year that the animal is being purchased, also depending on the cost. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
Is it, so stick with your initial, what if you figure out studies and you figure out, it's much better. So I was wondering, like, if the GLP, like, upfront, everything is just, and like,
Yeah. Okay. So in a GLP study, everything's set in stone. If you're going to change it, we have amendments and deviations. A deviation is when you're deviating from your actual plan. That is all written and documented. An amendment is a pre-thought change. So the protocol could be amended or a post-thought change, I guess, because you thought of something different, you wanted to amend it, but it has to be documented. So it becomes part of the permanent documentation and justified. So if you want to change it, but sometimes it's better to close it and start fresh. Yeah. Yeah, you can close it. The study closed. We found the parameters are unacceptable. Study's closed. Then we finished. Then you start with a new study. That's what we would recommend. If you have too many deviations and too many amendments, and the FDA gets this report, the FDA is going to go, well, these people were all over the map. They weren't really ready. So we're going to have to really scrutinize the study. No, you closed it because you were done with it. It stays in our books, but you don't want to, and you don't have to submit it to the FDA. So if the FDA comes back and finds it, but it finds it closed, that's what's closed because it didn't work. Okay, but if you submit it to the FDA with all those amendments and change everything else, they're going to scrutinize it more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're working in rodents right now, we would want to see your rodent data. And then we would, once we felt comfortable that your rodent data was good, then we'd say, okay, we'll move to a large animal, and with a pig or a sheep or a goat or a cow or whatever, we'd work with you on that. And if we saw that you were struggling, we would do our political best to tell you, you need to rethink. Oftentimes, it's very difficult for us to tell you you're messing up. It just doesn't go well at all. So, but we try to guide you. And then if you wanted to go to GLP, we probably would say, no, we're not going to go there, because it would put us in trouble too. So yeah, we won't do a GLP unless we've worked with you before. We have to do a pilot. The team has to work together to make sure that GLP, that we know that your device is going to work like you say it is, that your catheters are working, your deployment strategy is working, you've got the anatomy down, you can really get to the brain, or you can really do transeptal deep change over to the. We got to make sure you know how to do that, and then we'll go into a GLP. Yeah, well, it would see. So what happens is the reason people use rodents is because either they're genetically prone to particular disease, or because the material they're working with is really limited, so they wouldn't have enough to do it in a big pig, so they'll just do it in a little mouse or a rat. And all these these mice and rats that are genetically prone to have hypertension or genetically prone to get fat and diabetic, those things are much harder to produce in a large animal. The reason you'd move to a large animal is because your device, now everything's on this road and you figured out, now your device is going to be what's going to go into a human. So you can't miniaturize it anymore. It's got to be real size, real time, real everything. Yes? Right, yeah. Right, right.
Some are pretty obvious, they don't need it. But some kind of is very
Right. So if the FDA kicks it back, unless you want to go 510K, you don't think you're going to have to do any animals, and you go for it, the FDA will kick it back and say, no, you need to do some animals. But the FDA will tell you that. Well, yeah, it will tell you that. Yeah. Sorry, come back. So our clients will come back to us and say, guess what, we aren't going to, we have clients that come in, we're going to submit a 510K, we don't think we're going to use the animal, but let's work it out in case it goes in and they kick it back, we're ready to start. Okay. Anything else? I hope you guys found it interesting. All right, well, thank you.